Good morning, guys, and thank you for joining. My name is Vikram, and as you know, I have 20 years of experience as a Microsoft certified trainer, a cloud solution architect. Uh, in this session, we are going to cover AZ303 and AZ304. A lot of this content has been condensed. That means I'll try to save a lot of time for you. So you can use that time to learn and practice Azure in a fast track. So in this module, I'm going to cover introduction to Microsoft Azure and its service. Uh, in total, we have like 15 or 20 videos. This is the first video. So I'm going to cover introduction to cloud computing. Before we go into the slides, let me go through the certification track. The AZ303 is the implementation, 304 is a design. They are optional prerequisites to this. You can do AZ900, which is fundamentals. 104 is administrator, 204 is developer. So all these are role-based certifications, right? You can do DP200 with this data solution architect. DP300 is Azure DBA, AI900 is artificial intelligence series, AZ400 is DevOps, and AZ500 is security. So all these are very highly in demand right now, and this course is 303, 304 covers a lot of 900 in the beginning, and the 104 also. So you can directly write 303 and 304. So first, let's discuss the introduction to cloud computing and what are the benefits of cloud. And the definition of cloud is on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage, computing power without direct active management by the user. So the cloud solution providers, the leading cloud solution providers are AWS, Azure, and GCP. This course is entirely about Azure, maybe a little bit of comparison in the end with AWS. Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services, including servers, storage, database, networking, software, analytics, and intelligence over the internet. So you will be the computer, the data centers are now going to be outsourced to the cloud service provider as a managed service. And there are several benefits of that. One of them is resource pooling. As a public cloud, you will share resources among several clients. So the data center, the network, the internet is all shared with several clients. So that is saving a lot of cost. In the last decade or so, customers are migrating to cloud. Before that, they used to have their own data centers. And of course, when it says economies of scale, it is saving a lot of money, especially the capital expenditure, and so the businesses can focus on their running their business rather than managing the data center. So resource pooling, on-demand self-service, easy maintenance, scalable, elastic, agile, all these are characteristics or benefits of cloud. So you can use it as long as you want and how much ever you want. So that is why it is called scalable, elastic, agile. There is no downtime involved. There's a high availability provided by the cloud service provider with their multiple data centers. It is economical, it is secure, and you can use automation. There are different services and resources supporting these features. It is resilient and it's highly available with zero downtime and large network access. It's a multi-tenant environment. So all these are characteristics of Azure cloud. So there are different data centers. You can have a data center in different geographies. United States is a geography, India is a geography. And we can see that here if you go to geographies, Azure geographies, you search and you can go and you can see there's a globe you can with it. And then India is a geography, you have 3 data centers in India. These are the features. For example, availability zone is coming up in central India. If you go to East United States, there are 5 data centers, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 data centers in United States. And they have availability zones in these data centers, right? Whichever you can see. So if you go back to this diagram, whichever is a white dot, that has an availability zone, that means the 3 data centers there. So there is redundant storage and network is redundant. So there's high availability provided in these data centers. Some of them, this um, announced regions, the dotted ones are the one where the data centers are coming up, and availability zones are white, and then close to 50 regions, right? So how many regions? Close to 50 regions. Um, So under geography, there's the regions. Under also regional pair, that means data center can be duplicated or for high availability solutions, right? So now, so that is about geographies, region pair, and availability zone. So you can use a free tier account, use a credit card, and get access for 1 month free of 14 VMs, 40 SQL database, 8 terabytes of storage. Um, and you can access the resources and service using Azure portal or dashboard. Then you have deployment models and service model. Public, private, and hybrid are 3 deployment models. Um, Public means Azure portal is a public deployment model. So many customers, client use Azure portal. That's example. Um, you have shared resources in a public deployment model. Whereas private, let's say you have a highly secure application like banking or government or credit risk, involving database uh, applications, which you cannot afford to have shared resources. So in that case, you want to keep your own servers, own network, highly secure network. Then you go for private cloud, which is Azure Stack, which is going to be more expensive than public cloud. And then of course hybrid cloud, a combination of public and private. For example, you have some applications which are not so secure, and there are some applications which are highly secure. So you want to divide them between public and private cloud. So that comes under a hybrid cloud. So the 3 types of deployment models and 3 types of service models: and infrastructure as a service, where all the hardware is managed by the cloud service provider, whereas the VM database over the hardware is all created by the VNet is all created by the customer. So there's a shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and customer. So as platform as a service, there's more uh, responsibility taken by the cloud service provider. They manage the database, the VM, the VNet, everything. So you only run your application on that. And then there's a software as a service where everything, the software, hardware, resources are entirely managed by the cloud service provider. Example are Gmail, Office 365, ServiceNow, Salesforce, Google Apps, and Dropbox. So these are all which you use on a daily basis. Even like Facebook, Twitter, they're all software as a service. So we're going to see, before we start creating the resources using our portal, we have to understand as a cloud solution architect, what is CIDR notation. It's classless inter-domain routing notation. So all the resources are connect to each other using IPv4 configuration. Without IP address, they cannot talk to each other, communicate to each other. So before we migrate our applications or to cloud, the data center to cloud, we have to design and make sure that we don't have an IP address conflict. So every resource on the cloud and data on premise should have a unique IP address. So let's see how we are going to design a network, right? Before we do that, let's understand what is a resource group. In before 2014, when Azure was implemented in 2010, they had a classic deployment model. So there was no way they can segregate or manage the resources in a group. So in 2014, they came up with something called a resource group. So all resources have to be assigned to a resource group, especially all the resources with the same life cycle. You can segregate in a resource group. For example, or resources for same application, for example, finance or human resources, they can be segregated in resource group. So there are 4 levels of scope: the management group, subscription, resource group, and resources. So when you create resources, it's mandatory to give a resource group. And of course, you need to have a subscription even before you create a resource group. Subscription is how you create billing for a customer is being billed using subscription. And management group is optional, so you can have many subscription and a managed group. So these are the 4 scope. And of course, you can use billing and cost management to view how much this is you are being billed. Your invoice on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. You can track using billing and cost management. So what is the CIDR notation, right? CIDR notation is, for example, 10.0.0.1 by 32, or let's see a network diagram, a typical network, basic network diagram. 10.2.0.0 by 16 is a VNet, and 10.2.0.0 by 24 is a subnet. So as the number increases, the number of IP address decreases. You can see this here. As the number decreases, the number of IP address increases, right? For example, 24 means 254 IP addresses. 16 means 65,534 IP addresses. Here, 65,534 IP addresses are there in the VNet. Under that, there are 2 front-end subnet and back-end subnet. Front-end is usually exposed to the internet. Back-end is, people cannot connect directly through that. So you can design like this and implement security. So people has to come through RDP or, so divide by 24 means 32 minus 24, that is 2 to the power of 8, that is 254, right? So divide by 20 means 32 minus 20, that is 2 to the power of 12, that is 4094. So that is how you can calculate, 32 minus, and that many hosts can be there in the subnet. This is CIDR notation. Now we can quickly go and um, uh, before I go into creating the resources, let's watch through our LMS slides. There you go. You have during this module 1, we are going to discuss subscription, resources, free tier, ARM templates, storage, and the free tier account has a total 14 VMs, 40 SQL databases, 8 terabytes of storage per month, and it's worth 13,300 rupees in the in India geography. And after 1 month, you can upgrade to pay as you go. This is how the portal will look like. When you create a free tier account, you use this link. You can go to the free tier account. You have to give your credit card number and you can get started, right? So you have to give your Microsoft username password and you can give your credit card number and you can get started. Once your identity verification, they don't charge anything on a credit card. It's only for identity verification. And once you get signed up, you will get access to all the resources and you can access the Bash and PowerShell using these resources, which we are going to see in a few minutes. You can create apps, web apps with the press of button. All the resources can get created quickly. Then they have ARM template where resource provider is Microsoft Network Compute Storage. As I said, they are all contained in the same resource group, having common life cycle. So your access control, you can create roles and add users and groups to that roles using Azure's advantage of Azure Resource Manager and resource group is you have access control. So different terminology: resource group, resource provider, and ARM template. And benefits of using ARM: you can apply tags, deploy, manage, and monitor resource together, define dependencies between resources so they are deployed in the correct order, and then you can have role-based access control. And you can assign tags and use that for grouping of resources. So there are like 7 benefits in this slide. And it's a consistent management layer. So these are the things we will use in JSON JavaScript object notation: the schema, the parameters, the variable, the function, the resource, and outputs. So the schema content version is mandatory. And the resources. So we'll see example of this syntax. Now let's go, and before we jump into ARM and storage, let's go and create a resource, especially the VNet and VM using our portal. So this is my portal. This is my blade where I have all the menu on the left side. The first thing I want to do is create a VNet, right? Because VNet is the backbone of Azure. On VNet, all the resources get created on top of VNet. Under VNet, you need to have subnets. That is how a typical design looks like. For example, this is what we are going to create: 10.2.0.0 by 16. 16 means total of 65,534 resources you can create, right? And 24 means 254 resources. Well, let's create a VNet 10 to 0016. To create a VNet, for creating a VNet, we need a resource group, and we'll call it as Module1. And we'll have a name of this VNet1, right? And region is, let's create in East US, uh, because that has availability zones. I can create in Central India, but let's create in East US. And before I say review create, let me see the IP address here. Here I have to give my own IP address because I don't want to, by default it is creating a IP address, but I'm going to create my own as per my design. As per my design, it's 10.2.0.0 by 16. 10.2.0.0 by 16. And I have to add 2 subnets to this. First one is called front end subnet. As per my design, it is 10.2.0.0.24. So I'm going to leave the NAT gateway and service endpoints all by default. And then I'm going to add a backend subnet. Then 2.1.0 by 24. 10.2.1.0 by 24. Actually, your divide by 16 means 65,536 addresses. The last 2 digits can change, right? Divide by 24 means last 251 plus 5 reserve address, the 4 beginning and last 1 reserve address. So if I create a database in this backend subnet, the IP address will be 10.2.1.5. The first available unreserved, right? 10.2.1.5. So we'll see that also, right? So let's, so I have a VNet and 2 subnets. And security by default, I leave everything, tags, I leave everything, and just review and create. So module 1 is the resource group where VNet 1 is, and then I have a front end subnet, and I also have a back end subnet, right? Yeah. So as per my design, I have created this. So I have not created any extra features like NAT gateway or DDoS protection or endpoint, nothing. So just simple VNet I have created. So while the VNet is getting created, the next step is we want to create VM, right? So as per this design, I have web VM1 and DB VM1. Let's say I go and create. So the VNet got created within maybe 10-15 seconds it took. The next thing is VM. So as per this diagram, I'm going to create this one called web VM1 and DB VM1. Okay, so let's create two VMs. One VM is going to ask me the resource group name, which is module1, and it is going to ask web VM1, and you have to give the username and password to access the VM. So this is the username and password. The password has to match here, and the inbound port is RDP3389, which is default. So I'm not HTTP. Of course, for web VM1, we also want HTTP 80 and 443. So by default, it is giving premium, but for web server, I just need a standard SSD, which is again optional. See, by default, it is you have to select front end. Or web VM1, I want in front end. So leave everything else blank and just say create. So the pricing for this is 9 rupees per hour. It's a standard, so 6,000 rupees per month. So now I'll create a similar VM. While that is getting created, I'm going to create a VM. Called DBVM1, right? And this one should be on a backend subnet. So I'm creating one VM on the front end subnet, one VM on the backend subnet. So people who want to access my database, they have to come through my web server. First, the traffic has to come through my front end subnet, and if there is a firewall or you know, so I don't want my IP address people able to access my backend IP address exposed, public IP, and so this is a basic network how it will look like, right? DPVM1, everything is getting created in east to west, right? So all the resources have to be in the same region. I'm creating a Windows Server 2019 data center. Uh, I can also create a Linux VM, but for now I'm just leaving it as a. See, the standard DS size is 6,000 rupees per month. We are going to see the different use cases for the different size, but right now I've taken the cheaper one CPU 3.5 GB, and the default one. I have to give the password because the password, without the password, guys, for some reason my screen is hanging, the portal screen. But I will continue ARM template and storage in my next session. Also, network watcher in my next session. So thank you for attending. I hope you enjoyed the session.